Hey guys, this is Thomas Bird here talking about our recap of the live stream that we had yesterday. Brad and his Eldar versus my Ultramarines. Want to talk more in depth on what went right in the planning, what went wrong, things we could have done better, lessons learned, key moments, decision points, why things went the way they thought I should or not. Just kind of really diving in so we can learn something from that game. You always want to try to analyze games afterwards to kind of see, could you do things better? Did you make mistakes? Even if you won the game, which I ended up winning, could you have done things differently or better to kind of provide a better output or make the game not as close as it was? So let's talk about that, right? So in depth, in detail, the general plan, as we kind of drew it up, was we want to turn the game hammer and anvil. I'm just going to hold my 3 objectives. I'm content to pick up 10 points on the primary every turn. And I'm really going to try to take out 1 or 2 of his while we stands using the grab guys outflanking, because that was always my plan. And it worked. A couple things kind of threw a little twist in it. I didn't realize that he could spend a CP to give those guys a 4-up invulnerable save. For some reason, I was thinking it was a 5, not a 4. I also wasn't thinking about them having only armor save 4. So I was thinking really the grab guys are going to come in, drop a bunch of 2 damage on him. He's only got 5 wounds. A couple go through, and I get him. No, I got to get 5 through because he's only 1 damage per shot since he's armor 4. So that kind of came into play. And then, me winning the role to go first, we set the terrain up before we even get to kind of deployment. We set the terrain up, and I was very conscious of trying to keep the lanes open, not letting him have easy ruins to charge through, keeping the center open. I still needed to get Oath, but again, I was comfortable kind of staying back, and it was really kind of dependent upon where he put those artillery. Is he going to put them in the back far corners, or is he going to put them kind of centrally located? If he puts them in the back corners, I can kind of skirt his 24-inch range. If he puts them in the center, it's easier for me to get at him, but he'll have more kind of line of sight or more range to shoot with his D cannons. And as much as I don't necessarily care, that's still a lot of D6 damage. It's pretty accurate, so I don't want to just kind of continuously take barrage from those guys. So I was really kind of watching where he deployed to kind of dictate that. So I was kind of setting my guys up kind of centrally. I overloaded one side. He had more units for me to deploy than I did. I put a bunch of guys in reserve. So he was basically able to hold his artillery until the very end. So I just put 1 unit of attack bikes on the side where I thought he was going to put his artillery. Maybe he put 1 platform down. And he was really concerned about that, right? So I was just kind of keeping an eye on him. He knew I could redeploy, so he was really hesitant. But as I started stacking more and more guys on one side, he felt confident. He put them all in the corner. So I was pretty surprised, but also, not terribly concerned about his artillery. I felt like, they're all on one side. I'm going to have to force to go get them. That'll be interesting, but I can redeploy if I go first. So is that worthwhile? So when we rolled to go first, boy, that changed the equation, right? Because now, based on how we set up the terrain, it's pretty open in his deployment zone. I gave him 1 small ruin in the back. He couldn't hide all the artillery there. So if I redeployed strongly on that side, good chance I could pick up majority of his artillery and then over the subsequent turns, really destroy them. Like he wouldn't be able to stop me from killing them. And his clowns were exposed. So bolters double shooting. Clowns don't want that. Not at all. He had taken the -1 damage bubble. I think he learned during his game. Since my bolters were all 24 inches, I was really kind of skirting that 24-inch range a lot of times. If he had taken the -6 inches, that would have hurt my army quite a bit. Like I wouldn't be in range to even shoot at him. So he probably would change it for future matchups. But that was something he didn't have. I was able to shoot. So he was forced to redeploy. So something I've never done ever is play the redeploy strat twice. But I felt like if I pull off the huge alpha strike here, it's game over basically. So damn the CP, damn the torpedoes, we're going in hot. So I redeployed all heavy on that side. And he was able to redeploy with his Eldar strat, so he moved 3 units. So he decided he was going to try to save what he could, pulling out the clowns. But he also has, the clown strats, they can also move 3. But he put his platforms down. Once he puts them down, they become separate units, so he couldn't move all the platforms away. That would have been kind of disastrous. but he was able to pull one of each of the while we stand. So it was pretty good. It was like fantastic for him. He was able to pull 3 of those units. Again, once he splits, I have to kill the entire unit. They're all color coded, so I had to kill all of one color to get his while we stands. And so like when he pulled one of each away, basically even if I killed all those platforms over there, it didn't matter unless I killed the platforms on the other side of the board, which was going to be difficult. But again, I had the plan, right? I had the grab guys. I had set them up intentionally for that. So I wasn't worried. I wasn't perturbed. I was like, I'm going to do my plan. I'm going to kill what I got over here. And I'm going to be happy to sit here. So that was the thing. Afterwards, watching the video, I could have been more aggressive, pushing into the center, pushing towards him, making him come towards me, threatening him. But I didn't feel like I really needed to. I feel like all I needed to do was kill one of his while we stands, and I'm going to get the leg up. And we could tie on primary. I'm going to be up 15 on oath, and he's going to get 10 on his while we stand, maybe 5 if I kill 2 things. And then we're going to basically trade on engage, right? So I'm going to win. I don't have to win by a lot. I just win by 5 points. That's all that matters. So then we're just playing, cat and mouse on the primary. Can he steal it from me? I have 3. He has 2. Who's going to hold more? So we pretty much were even there at the end. The big takeaways was, once I brought the grab guys in, he had no CP. I was like, my original plan was a split. This is back when I thought it was 2 damage. I was going to shoot 2 guys at one, 2 guys at another. And then I got the cherub to kind of help out and try to finish off one if it wasn't killed or it was wounded, right? But I was like, I really need to make sure it's dead. But me being me, I can't just all in. I still have to split, right? I think I can get it. I'm used to just rolling well. I feel confident I can kill 2 or at least wound the second one really good. And maybe I have some small arms fire to finish it off. Well, he had no CP, so I was like, good, no invulnerable save because he had got me earlier with that. I'm gonna put 3 on there. That guarantee that kill, and then I'll have 1 guy. Maybe if I need the cherub, I can shoot again. Well, he farms a CP off my 1 CP that I spend to reroll 1s to hit. I was like, I didn't want to spend any CP because I knew he could farm when I spent, but he got it. He used the invulnerable save. I roll my 3 grab guys. I do 4 wounds. So even if he doesn't have any saves, it doesn't matter. He would not die. But he has a 4 up now because he spent his CP immediately. And he made 3 out of 4, so didn't wound it. So I left just 1 guy to shoot at the second guy. Luckily, I split him off. He did some wounds. I cherubed. All I had to do was roll 2 4s out of those 4 shots, and I did not roll any 4s. It's not wounded it, so it's still alive. My master plan was about to fall apart because I really only had 1 shot at it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to send guys all the way across the board to try to get at those guys. And, that was turn 2, so, I did have some time, but, it was going to have to be an all-in effort now. My plan was going to have to drastically change. But luckily, good old Tyrannic Veterans saved the day. 8 shots, -3 AP. I just hit 2 5s on their bolter shots and was able to pick up that 1 while we stand. So already I'm back to even. My plan is in full effect. All I got to do is hang out. So I felt pretty comfortable, with the game at that point. I didn't really feel pressure. I was really trying to maximize my efforts. I really wasn't doing a great job of it. I don't usually pick engage, or scramblers. Those aren't my 2 kind of go-tos. Pick them in this game. So I constantly kept making mental mistakes of, I ran with this guy and forgot that his job was supposed to be deploy scramblers. I think at one point everybody ran except for the Hellblasters who were going to shoot that turn, and I forgot to do deploy scramblers in the middle. And I'm like, I'm running out of time, turns, I need to do it now. So I had to spend 2 CP to do the Marine stratagem that lets you shoot after you do an action and not cancel it. So I was like, wasted CP. Because I had some Victor's Guard that ran for nothing that could have easily did it. Another big kind of key moment was when I brought the grab guys in, I had an opportunity to bring in my last unit of Victrix. And I didn't do it. And I was like, well, they're going to attack here. So then the third turn, I was saving those Victrix to kind of come in and help. And when I decided to bring them in, I was very hesitant. Do I bring them in? There's 10 clowns at this point. They had just cleaned up all my grab guys, the Tyrannic Veterans on that side. I felt like if I threw them into the meat grinder there, they weren't going to do anything. They were just going to die. They're going to get smited. They're going to get killed by his character. They were just going to give up points for nothing. Instead, I brought him in my other flank just to kind of reinforce that objective in case he deep struck guys in. because I knew he had some Rangers, right? What I didn't want was him to deep strike Rangers in, hit a 9-inch charge, survive, and then steal that objective from me with OPSEC. So not a terrible plan, but poorly done in execution, because what ended up happening was he was able to find a bubble where he can drop in my zone, get deploy scramblers, and get engage on all fronts. I was like, the double whammy. So I got 2 for 1. And I'm like, ugh. So like I kill those guys and he drops another unit in to get scramblers and engage on all fronts. It's like 2 Rangers got both of those zones. It was like the worst. And then what I also failed to recognize when I was like didn't bring the Victrix in, I had the Hellblasters ready to shoot at those guys. I set up this long, intricate plan to like, if he wants to fight, I like position guys very carefully. He's got to fight them in this open alleyway. So if he kills those guys, and I intentionally charged him to kind of put myself in that gap. If he charges me and they kill him, they're going to be out in the open for me to shoot. What I didn't want to be was like in the ruin where if he shot me and killed me, or if he charged me and killed me, he's safe behind a wall. Like I needed to be able to shoot those clowns. And so I did it. I did it perfectly. There's some morale problems. I pulled a guy. If you watch the video, that was a poor choice. I should have just left the Sarge alive. I think he would have did his job. He was kind of out in the open. Also another play to draw him into the charge. He ended up electing not to do it. And I failed the morale. So that was poorly done. But if he ended up charging anyways and got caught out. So it ended up being the same net result. He got caught out. I shot. He rolled poorly on his saves and they all died. But what I should have done was had that Victrix there to charge in as well. So what that does to a couple of things. If he had lived with a few guys, I charge in. I have the chance to kill them all. But it also stops him from doing an action there. Granted, he did able to easily get it because I did not block deploy scramblers on the other side very easily or very well. But all I had to do is really deploy cautiously on my whole half of the board and stop him from getting engaged on all fronts, and it would have been a much easier game. Basically, I gave him engage every single turn, just dropping guys in willy-nilly. There's one time he also left 1 unit of racks. I had 1 rack left, and I was like, I didn't really prioritize killing him. It costs 2 CP to recycle. He didn't have the CP, so I wasn't worried about that guy like coming in from a flank, which is a real problem. Again, they hit a 9-inch charge, they're OPSEC, they're 4-up and vulnerable saves, they ignore morale, so like they're hard to get rid of unless you shoot them all to death. And you don't want them kind of hanging around re-rolling charges into your backfield onto an objective, getting engaged, all those things. He's basically pushed in his side. There's no getting engaged for him unless I give it to him. And I'm like, I'll just shoot 1 or 2 bolters here. I shoot some crack grenades. I charge with this chaplain. All these things happen. And the last turn, he made to make some great saves. Left that 1 guy alive. He was able to, grow a CP back at the right time. And bam, he had 2 CP at the last turn to jump up, come in my zone, and potentially cause a lot of problems. So that was a big kind of mistake. That it cost me some points, but it didn't cost me the game. Like that could have been a huge turn if he had made that turn earlier. If he had charged my unit of intercessors at the very top on the last turn and made the charge, I guess on turn 4, he could have made that charge. He could have stopped me from getting scramblers because I couldn't fall back and still do an action. So that was huge. He ended up charging some Tyrannic veterans. He failed the charge, so it ended up not mattering, but good. But those guys should have been dead. Like plenty of opportunities to kill those guys. I let them live. Don't let those guys live. Right? You don't let guys that can recycle come back. Even if he has no command points, you don't know later in the game. They may be out of range. They may be out of sight. Now they come back, cause you problems. They neutralize the threats. So last kind of big thing was, I think turn 2, I set up for null zone. And, he had hidden his artillery in the back. And it was fine. It was delaying me, so he kept getting engaged longer than he should have. But I was kind of also farming him for Oath of Moment because I was getting a vehicle kill every time I kill a platform. So it was kind of like give and take. I'm like, I'm going to get engaged. You're going to get engaged, but I'm also going to get an extra point of Oath. So I don't really care that much. I'm going to get there eventually. But me not really thinking about the pacing of scramblers and who's going to do scramblers. I didn't really have the Victrix Guard in place to kind of just knock the scramblers out. I was really using them to kind of hold down Oath of Moment in the center. I was like, dang, I'm not be able to get scramblers with these guys. I need to get over the turn. I can't run, all these things. I ended up shooting at his racks. I popped null zone on turn 2. He had some racks he had run up to deny me some primary points. I'm like, I'll just shoot you. You're all dead. In hindsight, and I didn't think a big deal at the time, but it was a big deal. I should have used that as a place to get extra movement. That was a perfect time. They were going to die. I didn't need to shoot them. I should have sat up to shoot those stupid other racks that ended up living with the one guy and just charge these guys and use that movement to kind of shuffle closer to his deployment zone. Maybe even get on his objective to get 3 objectives at that turn. I think I held out for one more turn and force his hand, because as soon as I got 3 objectives, he was forced to have to either deny me one or jump on to his 3rd objective, which was basically out in the open. Anything he put there, I was able to shoot at pretty easily. So he didn't want to put guys there. I basically saved him a turn for having to commit that. Every turn he has, a few guys left, is more turns that he can now threaten, charge, or take from me later. So I needed to force his hand. I didn't do it. That ended up costing me problems. And those guys were kind of wandering around aimlessly in the center. Like their whole job was kind of just to sit there and block and get scramblers. And if I had knocked out the 3rd scramblers earlier, I would have been able to better use them positioning-wise. Instead of having to just shift around aimlessly. Again, my kind of general plan was well, but I was in the execution of the fine-tuned movement. I wasn't really kind of there because I'm not really thinking about getting engaged or getting scramblers in my brain. Usually, I'm getting banners. I'm knocking it out. I'm defending. I don't worry about movement. And you get used to having like infiltrators where they block 12. So you just like, I look at the board. I'm like, oh, they can't come in. I'm like, I don't have any infiltrators. There's just 9-inch guys. So there's all these little bit gaps where he can squeeze little 5 guys. And I wasn't like, oh, yeah. So, that's just playing and practicing. Again, I switched out those units that I've been using for a long time. So it's kind of muscle memory. Like I got to rethink about it. I like the list. Incursors versus infiltrators, that one's a tough one because, the way I use those units, I think the infiltrators do a lot better job, but it's a more matter of 50 points. 30 points, 40 points. I don't know what the number is, but I'll have to think about that. I'll lose a whole unit, which I liked having the 3rd Victrix. I didn't really use them for much in this game, unfortunately. I didn't put them in the right position. Again, I didn't want to spend 2 CP out of the gate to put guys in reserve and then double redeploy, so I spent 6 CP before the game basically even started. But it ended up mattering. Putting Victrix Guard and Tyrannic Veterans and Grab guys in reserve was huge. It gave me a lot of flexibility, a lot of options to kind of play both sides of the field and do work. And if I hadn't brought those veterans in on that side and the Grab guys, I wouldn't have been able to kill that platform and to basically take the game. So I think a couple things really led to that. But at the end of the day, the plan worked out. The vets are fantastic. They did their job. They were able to hold on objectives and not cost me a lot of resources. Their bolters mattered a couple times. They have a decent amount of attacks, so when they fought, they actually did some work. So I really like Tyrannic Veterans. We got a tournament coming up next week, a 2-day GT. So I got to get these guys fully painted for that. So got some work ahead of me. I'm going to try to get a couple more practice games, kind of fine-tune, shake the rust off of I don't have infiltrators and really see if that's going to stand. And but otherwise, a great game. It actually was really close. At the end, I think we looked at the tape, and Brad used a trick with those racks to fall out of combat and then fire and fade to get on my objectives to take up a couple more points for primary. We looked up that strat. It cost 2 CP, so he didn't have any CP to fire and fade. So it might have cost him 5 points on the primary. Ultimately, it didn't matter. Again, my plan was to just pick off one of his while we stands and then tie on everything else, and I win. Right. So that was the whole plan. I didn't really execute denying him engaging on all fronts. That would have made the margin a little bit bigger. But overall, it worked. Obviously, going first and redeploying, if that hadn't happened, it would have been a different game. We would have had to play a little bit different since he was so far on one side and I was so far on the other side. Been challenging to see how I would have got to those while we stands, and I may have had been more aggressive pushing into his objectives. But I think we were still okay on that because that would just happen later game instead of in the early turns. So I felt pretty confident in the way the terrain was set up that I was still going to be able to pull that off. But hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned some things and don't make some of the mistakes that I made. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. If I missed anything, or if you have a question about why I did something that I didn't kind of talk about, But I think you got to see kind of full power on both sides, what the Eldar can do, because he did some very crafty plays. It was great, kind of keeping me on my toes as he kind of maneuvered and positioned guys, those stupid rags, and to kind of get some points, right? So like he was never really out of it. It was keeping it very close. So I was like, I kept looking at the board. I'm like, how did I let him get those points? And it's like I just wasn't even thinking about stopping engage and deploy, one or the other. I knew I couldn't stop deploy, but don't give him engage too, like, all the things. So you're never out of it till you're out of it, right? So just kind of keep looking for those things. But come back next time. We will have a stream on Tuesday of a tournament championship. So we had an invitational. The last 2 undefeated players, we decided we're going to bring that game to you live. So that's going to be on Tuesday next week. I'm not sure when this video is going to go out, but it should be before that. Full on the clock, full tournament mode. We'll see these 2 great players, see who's the champion, crown the champion. And then, we'll have our big tournament the next following week. So we'll have a lot more coverage there. But thank you. Stay tuned for the next video. And like, subscribe, share, do all those fun things. And we'll see you next time.